Well, let's take this up with Theo Usherwood, who's a political commentator here with us this morning. Unusually, Theo, we haven't got a sort of a massive political story to discuss. We haven't really got much machinations going on. Keir Starmer's got a bit quiet. But he's being told on the front page of the Daily Mail in no uncertain terms, sort out Workshy Britain. And I think it's a good point, isn't it?
Yeah, the numbers are staggering, Mike. Let's just go through them. Nearly 10 million British workers who are out of work, who aren't looking for a job. And that's a fifth up on the previous year. That's up by 300. That's a fifth of the working age population, I should say. And it's up 350,000 on the previous year. Now, if you look at long-term sickness, that stands now at 2.83 million people. And of course, the Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, said that she wants to secure economic growth. She wants to get people back into, she wants to get the economy firing on all cylinders again. And how can she do that? The forecast now projects that soon, in the medium-term future, we could end up with a welfare bill of around £100 billion a year. And Rachel Reeves has, and Keir Starmer, during the general election, decided not to make how people can claim benefits or how easy it is to claim benefits a particular issue. The Conservative Party did actually have some plans on this, namely they were going to take the right of doctors to sign people off sick. They were going to remove that right from doctors, and they were going to give it to specially trained individuals who would have the right to decide whether somebody could stay on sick pay or sick leave or not, and then, of course, claim those benefits as a result if they were eligible. And therefore, but Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, they've decided not to go down that route. They want to try and be more carrot than stick, and in trying to get job centres and Job Centre Plus to be more inviting to get people back into the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that, as you say, £100 billion is an awful lot of money. If they could even save a fifth of that, if they could just get a fifth of the people back to work, because I'm sorry, I don't accept that there are that many people who should be on long-term sickness benefit. I accept that some people have difficulty working, some people suffer from problems that, they can't fix and, they find it hard to work. But surely, if they could even save a fifth of those people and get them back into work, saving the country 20 billion quid, it's worth doing, isn't it?
Yes, you're quite right, Mike. And of course, it's a double-edged sword, because it's not just money going out in terms of people receiving benefits. It's also money not coming in because people aren't working, and so they're not paying taxes. And it becomes very difficult when you have 20% of the working age population, a fifth of the working age population, not contributing into the system, because it puts more pressure on those who are working to continue working. And of course, it makes the prospect of tax cuts less likely, because how does the Treasury raise the money it needs for the public services we want, namely education for children, the NHS, and major infrastructure schemes, or the Ministry of Defence, or whatever they want to spend the money on. So in order to have more money coming in, you could say, okay, well, we're going to put taxes up on those who are working at the moment, but you could also say, actually, we want to cut the welfare bill and we want to raise more taxes because we want to have more people in the economy working.
Yes, and that's a good way to raise taxes, isn't it? Because, rather than giving them benefits, you actually have them contributing into the exchequer. And that's my point, because people are going to get more and more fed up if they realise that there are this many people being subsidised by those of us who pay tax. And people will go, well, you're going to charge me more tax to do what? Oh, to pay for people who are not working. Well, that's not a fair exchange, I don't think.
Yeah, and it does create that sort of resentment, doesn't it? That people who are going out there, who are working, who are earning money and paying their taxes, look over their shoulder and they think, hang on a moment, are there people who aren't pulling their weight in the economy? And I think there are lots and lots of people out there who are entitled to claim their benefits and can't work, and perhaps would actually really like to work, because actually work can be very good for your mental health, can't it? And very good for your self-esteem. If you can go to the workplace, you get to see people and take part in a project, or say it's something part in something worthwhile. But there is a problem where people, given where we are, given where the numbers are, you can't look at those numbers of 9.4 million people choosing not to work and suddenly shrug your shoulders and say there isn't a problem, that every single one of those people choosing not to work somehow is perfectly entitled to just stay at home. It just doesn't work like that. And you would think that actually, Rachel Reeves, if she wants to deliver on the promises that she has set out in terms of, getting UK PLC back into a match fit state,
yes,
so that we can actually, compete as a global economy, then one of the problems she's going to have to deal with is the fact that we have so many people are now out of work, and there are lots and lots of vacancies out there in the economy.
Well, this is it.
That employers are saying, we need you to come and work for us.
Well, this is it, because this is the sort of root of all sorts of problems, including why we have too much immigration in this country, because people say, who run companies, well, we need to get immigration up because we need to get people in to do the jobs that Brits who don't want to work aren't filling.
Yes, you're quite right to say that. But actually, if you look at the latest numbers in terms of legal migrants coming to this country, the measures that were introduced by the Conservatives just before the general election, in terms of increasing the salary thresholds for partners, removing the rights of some people to certain groups within that to bring their spouses to this country, have actually had the effect of reducing the number of people applying to come through legal routes to work in this country significantly. And so what you're going to end up with, Mike, is not necessarily migrants filling these jobs, people come to this country to work and filling these jobs. You're just going to end up with empty jobs that don't get done, businesses that don't get started, expansion plans that simply don't happen, because employers won't be able to get the workers that they need to fill those vacancies.
Right.
And that's the real danger. Actually, is okay. You're quite right to say employers have looked towards migrants to fill the skills gap, to fill the jobs. But at the moment, actually, if you look at the numbers of what's happening, is actually those numbers of people coming from overseas to work in this country are dropping off. But at the same time, what you're not seeing a drop off in the number of British people in this country out of work, going into work as a result. And so you're just going to end up with, business not happening because people can't get the people, employers can't get the people to fill those vacancies.
No, exactly right. Which brings us on to the second subject this morning, which is also kind of related. In the Telegraph, 40% surge in children on disability benefits, up 200,000 claims for ADHD and autism. Again, some of those will be genuine. A lot of them will not be, in the sense that, a lot of these kids will then move into adulthood and not take up a job because they'll say, we can keep claiming this benefit.
Yeah, and this all goes back, Mike. I think this all goes back to the way we handled the pandemic, isn't it? And the way the schools closed. We didn't just have one set of school closures. We had two. We had the first wave. When we had the first wave of the pandemic, we had schools closed from March through to the summer. So had kids off sick. Well, by the time most kids went back, it was September, wasn't it? So
definitely.
Yeah, and then Gavin Williamson went and shut the schools with Boris Johnson in January, right through for another. For the best part of the first half of the year, wasn't it? So you ended up in a situation where kids weren't going into school. They got into the habit. They became very isolated. They became very cut off. They lost the ability to easily communicate with their peers. Rise in young children. Relying on screens and so forth. And without that positive input of going to school, then you've now seen this, but it's a significant spike for autism claims. It's up by a third to 337,000. ADHD up by a fifth, 72,000. And these claims, these benefits. Yes, the parents apply, or the carers apply for the children, but it's because the parents can't go to work, so they're having to stay at home because they're looking after their kid who has been diagnosed with one of these conditions. And you've got to look at the way at the way we handled the pandemic. And if we have another pandemic, are we going to do the whole thing over again of closing the schools all over again?
Hopefully
because you're
not.
quite right. You'd hope so, wouldn't you? But, it's worth reminding ourselves, of course, that when the Tories closed the schools, it was actually Labour who were saying that they wanted the schools to be closed for even longer.
Absolutely.
They weren't there banging the drum saying we need to open the schools up as quickly as possible.
No,
but,
exactly.
You're also right. They're making the point, and if you look at this, is that when you have DLA stops. But if you have children who are isolated, who aren't able to get the support they need and aren't taking part in schools and in their community, are those children more or less likely to go into the world of work? And you've only got, the numbers and the data would suggest that actually, when you have these types of conditions with ADHD, autism, the support isn't necessarily there to get you out into the world of work and to support you in the world of work, because actually that's a really good thing, which can support, which as I said before, work is it's not always the case. You can have some very, very severe mental health conditions that, you clearly can't work with. But actually, if you are feeling low, if you are feeling anxious, if you can get into the habit of going to work, then that can really be quite
very therapeutic. Absolutely,
very therapeutic. And you get to talk to people, and if you don't get to, if you've got somebody who's off sick for say a week and they become anxious and depressed, if you can get that person back into work rather than just staying home feeling more anxious and depressed, are you more likely to get that person back into work after a week? Or are you more likely to get that person back into work after 6 months at home feeling anxious and depressed? I would suggest you're more likely to get that person back into work after a week at home, just to actually then bring them into the workplace and support them and get them working.
Absolutely right. Theo, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Theo Rushwood there on the subject of the Workshy Britain conversation that we're having this morning. And I know that some of you are disagreeing with me about it, and most of you are agreeing with me.